me. All right. Let's see what I have here. Pull my notes up. So I took a bunch of notes. I spent a bunch of time talking to coaches. I went back and watched VODs again. Um, I would say that from most people's perspective, I think we would agree it was a bit disappointing of a season. I mean, there was a lot of mitigating circumstances, right? We went from kind of like a high plat, low diamond elo to like a high diamond in the tournament, kind of jumping two spaces. And then we lost, some of the rosters, so not quite the season we wanted. But um, the things that I want to propose are kind of based off the assumption that we want to be a competitive team, right? Like we want to put our best six out there. We want to compete and do well in the tournament or whatever scenario we're putting ourselves into, whether it's OD, OTC, whatever, right? So it's not exactly intended to be, the most fun combination of people or whatever, right? So like that's kind of the preface for all this, right? The intention being that we are the best team that we could be. Um, so a couple things that I have thought of and I've kind of gone through coaches. One, there is a tank duo that approached me 2.5 weeks ago, playing both at 3,200, and I think we're going to give them a week-long trial. They have played together for over 6 months as a tank off tank duo, and so we're going to try them out. One of the things that a lot of people have called out as an issue is trying to solidify both kind of synergy between people as well as shot calling. And so from the talks that we had with these two, we feel like they have a relatively strong presence in both of those. So we're going to give them a chance to try to see if they fit into our roster. So that will include some shuffling of other people on the roster, right? One of the things we're going to do is I want to try Baptized on healer. I think right now we're going to give him a shot at main healer first. And then maybe if we need to, we'll see him on DPS as well. The other thing is I want to adjust the scrim schedule. So we're going to be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday night. I think that's going to allow us to set Wednesdays aside for VOD review and a ladder stacking. And so the idea is that let's say we're working on a particular composition. We want to run 4 DPS, or we want to run goats, or we want to run something particular that week. Or maybe it's more prevalent than other compositions that week. What we would do is we'd pick a VOD where we recently ran it. We would kind of really nitpick it in that map. And then we could go ladder stack either 6 players or 5 players and a coach, and then jump into like a bunch of maps on the ladder and actually practice some of the stuff that we just recently reviewed. So hopefully kind of the same thing that we do with the scrims, where we get a map review and then try to implement. In this case, we get feedback on how our implementation was during a scrim or a match, and then try to correct some of those in real time. The other thing is we may be looking to potentially, as we said, baptize the DPS. We may potentially bring someone else on, that has either a more extensive hero pool than me or Conquerad, or maybe cover some of the gaps between us, and then see how that fits into everything. Just because there's some things we've talked about, like Pharah and Brig, for example, that where we don't have good coverage from the PS side. So that's one of the other things that we look to do. I talked about ladder stacking. That's not going to be a mandatory thing, but it's going to be an opportunity to teach and evaluate. So if you can make it best that you are here, but obviously it's a little bit more casual setting. The other thing that we want to do is we want to mandate a personal goal sheet. So for each player, come up with 1 to 2 short-term, 1 to 2 long-term goals in a way that's measurable, right? So short-term being like this scrim or this week, I want to work on this, and this season would be the long-term, right? And by measurable, I mean, for example, me, we've talked about, I've done some really dumb solo mission positioning type things, right? So I can't say get better at positioning because it's hard to measure whether or not you're actually doing that, right? Instead, I could say, maybe fewer deaths where I'm the first pick in a fight, or fewer times spent in a fight that's not actually part of the main fight, right? So stuff like that. So things that can actually be quantified. It doesn't have to be public. Like you don't need to announce your goals to anybody. You're certainly free to do so, but at least share it with the coaches so that we can, one, know what you're working on. 2, they can give you feedback specific to what you're working on in that role. And the other thing is if there are any general questions. Obviously, there's going to be questions as to why we're trying some of these things and what um, led to some of these decisions. If it's particular to you as an individual, we have feedback particular to you, as well as kind of like a grading system, I guess you could say. And so we will talk to you in person, like either in DM or we can get on a call and to talk to the coaches like that. But general questions from the team, like macro side, we could definitely talk about. I know that there was some talk about potentially sitting out this season for OTC and doing just scrims and just trying to learn. I think it's it's up to the team. We can kind of do more of a vote on that. I don't really necessarily care one way or the other, but I don't think there's any harm in continuing to do it the way that we were last season. I don't think it was like a huge setback to have played in these matches, whether we did well or did well or did poorly. So let's see if there's anything else I had here. Yeah, I think that's like the main big picture. Let me unmute the peoples, and then we can see if there's any questions, or maybe before that, if J3 wants to jump in and add anything to. I know Wolf had some stuff he wanted to talk about, but we will bring that in at another time when he's available. So J3, was there anything specific from your side that you wanted to add? Just kind of like the general mindset going into the off season. You had plans?
I mean, nothing in particular. We just have to keep in mind that as a team we're trying to get more serious, so that might mean that obviously with making the second team or whatever, like some people might be asked to be on that team and maybe they view that as a demotion, but that's just how it is sometimes. But obviously it's not necessarily demotion, it's just playing with different people, so.
Yeah, I actually forgot to bring that up. With that, if there's an addition of a couple people, right? Obviously, we have the potential to fill out two different teams. So we have the option of doing a second team and kind of running those as a more stable six, so that we have two set sixes that have more synergy within each other, but also giving us some flexibility within the team as a whole. Or we have the ability to do just people who are set as subs and people who are playing with options to rotate in and out, whether it's maybe someone specializes on Hammond, and so when we're planning to run a 4 DPS, we pull the Hammond player in, and maybe we swap out an off tank for somebody who's more specialized in DPS, or however we want to run. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. So anybody have any questions? I know that was kind of high level. There wasn't a ton of specifics. The things that are particular to you as an individual as far as feedback, we can do more privately. Not that necessarily they're terrible and they're just going to be a bunch of time spent shitting on any individual person, but that way at least it doesn't feel like we're criticizing people in front of like a bunch of other people, right?
When it comes to next season for OTC and stuff, I think it might be more beneficial if for a reason for not doing it for next season is when we're not doing a match for OTC, allows our coaches to be more responsive and be able to give us more insight, like in between rounds and such. Whereas if we're in a match for our tournaments, if they obviously can't do that because that would be against the rules. But when we're doing a scrim or something just for practice, and they're allowed to give us more feedback and more, hey, let's pause the match, need to talk about this real quick. Versus if you're in an actual tournament match, we don't get that same benefit.
Sure.
So that's my an argument for not doing OTC for this next season.
Yeah, you actually, I don't know if you did it on purpose or not, but you just answered 2 of the 3 questions I sent you, and then said if it's a specific question about you, but wait till later. So yeah, those were my questions. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a good point, Pants. You definitely get a lot more immediate feedback.
And it was also just because I was with Pants when we all brought this up at the attempted meeting yesterday. I brought it up, and me and Pants were talking about it, that I think it would be more beneficial because in a situation where if they run out with goats, we either struggle to play our goats or fall apart by playing. Well, I mean, actually, I wasn't there when we played 4 DPS. Apparently, it went pretty well. I don't. Again, I wasn't there, but you get the point. You know, we're not comfortable on that 4 DPS because we haven't practiced it enough, and then we're not comfortable on goats because we don't have players for it. And then this is also more of a. This is more of a personal, but also kind of spreads over to other people. We just wanted to kind of throw that warning out there. As far as I know, you mentioned Pharah when you were talking about bringing in other players. I think that'd be kind of a waste. I mean, them being able to play it, that's great, but they shouldn't be pulled in because they can play Pharah. Because if we're gonna, like Wolf brought up that you were talking about having 3 DPS slots, you know, a hit scan, a projectile, and a flex DPS. Well, the flex DPS really should just focus on, you know, off meta and then probably Brig and maybe something else for like the Ghost comp. But as far as Pharah, if I go into the projectile DPS slot, shouldn't that necessarily, I mean, technically give me more time to focus on learning the projectile that I'm not comfortable on?
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
That would-
ideally, if you were wanting to take a like purely projectiles, position, then you would have all those hero boxes checked.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I
think the idea of
when
a third DPS is not necessarily that we need to fit each one of those categories, but that we have a total hero pool covered.
Yeah. I think
Whether
it's
or not there's
also-
some overlap on either side. It's
It's
not
also
necessary.
important to know we're not like Overwatch League top tier like the London Spitfire. Where we have 2 DPS that can do everything. We're just not at that
So-
level. Like
What's up, coach?
Oh, hey, Wolf.
Hey, sorry, my I probably can talk for maybe 3 minutes before my power goes out again. So
oh, you're good.
Oh, you're good. Yeah. We kind of just went through the points that I had talked about, I think, with you.
yeah,
Thing that I think Concrete just brought up was the OTC, whether or not to play the next season. One argument against playing it was that you can have a scrim in the place of what a match would be, and that
Yeah.
coaches can be more involved directly in a scrim, which gives us better feedback.
Yeah.
I think from the other side, you could say that you get a more controlled scenario of who you're playing against in a tournament match. Like the SR ranges, the rule set that kind of defines what you're playing with, and that gives you a better barometer of where you're at. Whereas
Yeah.
scrim is a bit more of a wild card. So I think there's pros and cons of both sides, but as a team, I think we can decide that doesn't necessarily need to be a decision from me or the coaches per se.
yeah, makes sense.
I also think, although yes, you get much more control. I think especially with our group, SR is right on that border of like 2 brackets. So either we get placed at a really high end of one bracket where we're not learning a lot, or we're putting at the low end of another bracket where we're getting like, lack of a better term, kind of dumpstered on mechanically because we're not at that level yet. So taking
That's
a season
fair.
to try to get to that next level could be very beneficial for just like throwing us in there and hoping we do well.
Potentially, yeah, I understand that.
That's a fair point. That's a J3. What do you think?
Sorry, I missed what we were talking about.
Oh my fucking
out.
god!
Well, so to be fair, to kind of respond to that as well, Vance, I'm also scheduling scrims in the SR range that our current bracket is, so it's not
Yeah,
really
yeah.
that much different than,
Well, I was saying though, but like, I don't know. Like, I was saying more of like, even though we're having scrim in the same bracket, since it is like a tournament match, it can be a bit. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I'm saying like, if we're just
Like a
getting
mental
dumpstered
block?
on,
I
we're
don't-
not getting to
I
that
don't know.
level. We need.
I don't know if this is what he's trying to get at, but maybe, and I agree with this as why I'm bringing it up. It's kind of like the difference is it's also just slightly a mentality difference. Getting shit on in a tournament match feels a lot worse than getting shit on in a scrim. Just, I mean,
That's
that might be
fair.
That is
same.
morality, or not?
I mean
more-
But also-
that's fair.
Even if we're getting shit on mechanically in a scrim versus getting shit on mechanically the difference is within the scrim we're still getting coached more than in that tournament. Like within the scrim we're still allowing ourselves to.
there's also value,
be
I think,
coached.
for getting experience at
I'll,
that stage, right? Like,
I'll tell you this, right? As an advocate for the tournament, because I have no preference, right? I don't really care, but it does give you structure on a weekly basis. It does give us a structure of what maps to review per week, gives you a structure of what to work on per week, and it also gives you a goal at the end of the day, what to shoot for. So I will tell you there are some pros and cons to it, but as a team, you guys can maybe sleep on it and then come to the decision like mid next week, depending on when signups are.
Oh, we still have some time because they're
Yeah.
scheduling semifinals this week, and then
Okay,
finals
so
that-
yeah,
Probably
no,
two or 3 weeks
just-
out. Or
right,
more.
two-
just think it over. Just think it over to yourselves. But I don't see the harm in doing it again. But Pants is correct. We are at a weird place where we are getting put with teams that are like 400 to 500 SR better than us, which is okay. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like oof, oof, or sometimes it's like okay, we put in some work there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like it sucks when they're walking in with a player that's 500 or 600 SR above us, but because of the other players on their team, it's charged. Like when you were bringing up the 4400 Widow player that you were talking, like
Yeah.
example, when you were mentioning that yesterday, I mean, I think that just kind of really, in a really good way, like shows what you kind of analysis
Like, you
what
don't
he's talking
you
about.
don't learn anything if they're too much
Yeah.
greater than you.
And like the
It's
whole
true.
thing is, think about it. I mean, this is not the number doesn't matter. I'm not bringing this up for any reason, but like with Dakino at 2700, Gully at 3300, and my peak at 3300, it kind of if we scale that up into the Masters and Grandmaster, range. What if they have a person like Gully, let's say just a DPS player who's again, barely within the range of the rest of the team as far as the OTC goes, they'll still skim by, but then we're suffering from them just pocketing somebody insanely better than us.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, you guys we can talk about this at a later time.
And
You can all think it through. Yeah.
I
We're good.
have one more question, and I'm going to structure it as a question from my perspective because it's the easiest way for me to ask it because I don't know how this would apply to other roles because there's not as many characters. But for the people who are getting shifted on characters, I would like advice, but also just like what's a better word than advice? Like people would probably need like a guideline or a
Guidance.
instruction, guidance on what they're going to play. Because like for example, when you say projectile, what comes to my mind is Genji, Hanzo, Pharah, Mei, Torbjorn, and I just go down the list. But then you also say, the third person's gonna be again. I don't know how all this works, but then you're saying like off meta picks and just stuff like that. And you actually mentioned Mei Wolf yesterday in your list.
Yeah.
Which, that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying make me or let me play every single character in the game. I'm just saying I don't know if that applies to other roles or other situations. 'Cause I
Yeah.
know like
See,
the main
here's the
heal
thing,
role is
Concrete. If you're trying to learn more than 3 characters, you're not going to get good. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the truth of Overwatch. That is the underlining thing. That if you are trying more than 3 characters, you are going to inevitably fail. Okay, because you do not have enough time, you do not have enough brain power, nor the resources on a daily basis to acquire the skills of more than 3. So that is why it is Genji for you, Hanzo, and Pharah. Okay, it doesn't mean that there's not other projectile heroes out there. It just means that is all you have time for.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Okay.
again, that was more like a question because, like, I know the main heal role is kind of iffy depending on what comp you're playing, what counts as a main heal. Because I always thought Ana, Mercy, and somewhat Lucio, no, and Moira were the main heals, and the rest were off heals. But I've heard
Yeah.
that Lucio is a main healer sometimes, and then like
No,
Just-
no, you're accurate. Now Lucio is the main healer in Strict Dive, Lucio Zen. But other
Yeah.
than that, he's an off healer.
well, I mean, it's just kind of stuff like that because what you just said made perfect sense. But like, I was just curious where that would fall under because I mean, I'm still gonna focus Farah upmost because she's the most important character that I can't play right now. It's not like we're trying to run
Well,
Mei or
these are things that like as we develop comps, right, that we're working on in scrims, we can talk about who plays
Right.
what in that
Yeah.
time. We don't have to try to define everything very rigidly right now.
Right. But like if you try to learn 5 DPS, you're not going to be any good to us. It's going to take you too long of a span of time to grow. Do you understand what I'm saying?
yeah.
For example, a hitscan player currently will most likely be playing McCree, Ashe, and Widow. And the reason why that is because Soldier is the easiest to pick up, so they leave it behind for now.
What about stuff like Sombra?
Sombra's not
Where's that
the same as
coming?
hit scan, I don't think.
So-
that'll be the flex DPS.
So your flex DPS can be a Sombra. Your hitscan player can also be a Sombra. Okay, that is depending because he can drop the Ashe if he wants.
What about like
Yeah, he
Tracer
can
and
drop.
such?
he can drop the Ash if you want.
It's not a big deal.
So here's the thing. Trace. Okay. And then again, right? If Goldie wanted to drop something else to the Tracer, that's right. But we're in a meta where he would most likely go Widow, McCree, Sombra.
Right.
It's true.
So.
Like 4 deeps, I guess, right?
Right. And then yeah, as I did show us the roster. Where did I put it again? Jesus.
I don't think you typed it in. I think you just told us like.
You just told us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in our DMs way up there.
Oh my gosh. But yeah. Anyways, we are going to expand the roster just a little bit, just to cover our bases, because again, I don't want you people learning 5 characters. Do you understand?
Yeah.
If you're learning 5 characters, you're not going to be very good. You need to learn every character, but after you've learned every character, you then need to stick with 3.
Is it like
Okay.
learn then master sort of
Yeah.
thing? So
What'd you
can
say?
learn all of them, but
Specialize.
you
Yeah.
3 of them.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And yes, they may rotate out, right? For example, if we go to dive meta in half a year, then yeah, you're gonna stick with Tracer, Sombra, Genji, things of that nature. When in this meta, you can most likely drop a couple of those heroes to pick up something else currently, like McCree.
Yeah.
So.
One
Yep.
thing I've had a few people talk to me about is they're kind of worried that if we bring in so many people, like all of a sudden the roster changes to basically a totally different group, and that's something that I just wanted to bring up because a few people did bring that up to me.
Yeah, it's one of the considerations, right? But that's why we've considered a second team as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm saying, I think if we bring in a lot of people, we should make sure we have a second team. So people who've been playing, like if someone's been here for like a few months and all of a sudden they don't have a place to play and they're sitting on the bench, that can feel pretty bad for some people.
I mean, I don't think we should look at it. I mean, this is my opinion. I don't really care either way because, I mean, there is a way it can affect me. But I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, this is your decision in the end of the day. But my 2 cents on that is I don't think we should necessarily throw it under the idea of a second team, just 6 more players or 5 more players or just more players on our team, because we need to feel as the same team. Because like he just said about the feeling disconnected thing, or like if you've been here for forever. For example, I've been here since I think
June.
June,
Yeah.
June-ish.
Well, almost
June-ish
everyone's
of.
been here since June. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but
I understand that, but tenure
doesn't.
doesn't necessarily make you the best fit for
Well, I
the
know,
current
but that's
meta
what
or
I'm
the
saying,
current
like,
roster.
I was
right?
just bringing up like how long I've been here just as an example. That's not part of the story. I mean, not part of my thing, I guess. But like, we should just keep it as one team with multiple players.
We can do that. One of the things that we want to do, though, is we want to stress continuity this season. I don't like the way that we had to rotate main tanks. I don't like the way the off tanks had to switch as much as or off healers. Sorry, had to switch as much as they did. I felt like it kind of hindered us in the long run. So one of the things that I want to focus on is trying to keep a more stable 6. And so the idea of a second roster gives us 6 people who, or it gives us the ability to play everyone, but also maintain continuity among 6 players.
That makes logical sense. Only thing is if we do bring in a second team, we do have to allocate resources to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, splitting coach time, it gets weird, and I don't know if we want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's like we have very limited resources, right? We have 1 captain, we have 1 manager, and we have 2 coaches. All right. So obviously this team will have less resources than the other team. I don't think that's avoidable.
Yeah.
But like I can see the benefits to having one if we can make it work.
And there's some things we could do logistically, right? From like a map review perspective, you don't necessarily need to distinguish between the 2 teams, stuff like that.
Right.
So we can.
What's your idea, J3? What do you think?
I was just gonna say like it's like there's essentially 2 options, right? There's either making another team or trim down the current team. Like we can't pick up 2 tank players and then tell 6 people, hey, you're on the bench now.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
There's not gonna be 6 people who are willing to just sit on the bench. Like I wouldn't be willing to do that if I was playing. Like I'd probably just leave. So realistically, it's either we make another team so that those people get play time, or we just tell some people goodbye,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
both are equally viable. It's just a quick question of what you want to do.
Yeah, and if we choose to say like the trim down part, I would rather not bring in people if we're gonna end up cutting people, because I'd rather spend time making people we have good than pick up good players. Because like I don't know, I feel like it could be very like I don't want to say insulting, but like you know, like we could, you know, like if we're just gonna do that, why wouldn't we just go up and just say, oh, now we're a grandmaster team, just pick up all grandmaster players? You know, it's like if the goal is to get better, I don't know.
And
I'm
yeah,
rambling at
kinda-
this point. Never
From
mind.
I kind of understand Pan's point, because with him as the manager, technically, he could just say, "Screw all of you guys," and then just make a team and pick up a bunch of like masters or grandmaster players, keep Wolf and J3 here, and say "fuck you" to everybody else who's in diamond and plat. If that was the point, but the point is for all of us to get better. So if we already have like that team,
Listen,
whatever it's called,
listen.
I don't know.
Here's the thing. Okay? Because I've been on a lot of teams. I've been a part of
Mhm.
probably 30 teams at this point, maybe more. This is going to happen. Okay? It may not happen today, tomorrow, a couple weeks from now, but you have to understand that we are human. We have different rates of progression. Okay? If 5 people progress at X and you are progressing at, Y, you will eventually be benched. That is the story of, how life works. Okay? Now again, I don't know if that's happening today or tomorrow, but you do have to realize that if you do not put in the extra effort, if you're not here on the scrim nights, if you are at a lower baseline skill already, not only do you have catching up to do, but you also have to make sure that you are progressing at a higher rate than the people around you. Okay? Especially as a DPS player, sadly, if you're an Ana or a DPS player, you have to progress faster than anybody. Right? Because there's a clear metric of how well you're doing. Right? If a tank lets in a shatter, it's like, oh, okay, maybe he made a mistake. If your accuracy is 49%, then it's like, okay, something's going on here. So, and obviously, no, that's not fair. I mean, I'm an Ana player. I know what you mean. But that's just how it goes.
That's how
All
it
right.
goes,
I don't
yeah.
think we're replacing the entire team tomorrow. I think Goalie is getting to the point where, hey, some of us are ready to progress onto a new level, and maybe some of us aren't. Okay, and that's fair. As I said, it may not happen now, but we have to understand that it will happen eventually. Okay, as the team grows.
Oh yeah, I understand like growth is a thing. I was saying more of like I would rather. That's why I want to say if we do choose to bring in new people, to make sure there's a spot for people who are still putting in effort to still practice.
Right,
And
and I
that's
think that's the idea behind the second team.
Yeah.
And one option that we have is if we do a second team, instead of splitting coaching, like allocating coaching resources, right? You can have common things that both teams can participate in, but then not have coaching
Yeah.
specifically for the second team within the
We
scrims.
can participate in actual map reviews, which is good.
Yeah.
And then you would see who wants to progress more from the second team. Any other questions? Again, like one of the things I think that Wolf missed at the beginning is that if you have questions that are particular to feedback for you individually, we'll do those either through DM or in like a one-on-two with me and the coaches, because I have all that down, or you can even one-on-one approach a coach if they're okay with that. But we have that in a different form. We're not going to discuss individual stuff here.
If you're a tank, I'm not a big fan of one-on-one, just for future reference. Okay.
How about off tank?
I think that's
Off tank has some things that I can help you one-on-one, but you have to understand that like when it comes to tanking, it's like 6 stacking is probably the most important thing for your growth and development.
Okay. So if we're looking to get better at tank play, you suggest don't solo queue?
No, technically we all have to
Well,
solo queue.
I mean, you
Get
could
better.
do it as like Winston or Wrecking Ball. Well, maybe not
Right.
Wrecking Ball. You can do it as like Winston, but like Reinhardt solo queue kind of sucks.
Yeah, just the sadly the fact of it is, right, is as a tank player, right? You playing with the 6 deck is, I would say, literally on every level different than playing solo.
Okay. I was more worried that if is playing solo queue hurting your tank play versus.
No, it's not gonna hurt. Well, I don't.
I developed a few bad habits from solo queuing. Like charging
everybody
at
can
status
develop
and
bad
stuff.
habits.
Yeah.
So I can
Yeah,
say there's
honestly,
a few bad habits.
just never find yourself in plat, and you'll prevent yourself.
Alright, we've already all failed.
Yeah, but like never like stay in plat for too long.
Oh fuck me.
Alright.
Rip me.
So the season's about to end, and you won't be plat anymore.
No, Dakino, you're fine in plat.
I don't feel fine.
No, see, as an Ana player though, you're always developing those skills no matter what rank you're in. Not positioning and avoiding good DPS players, but AMIB.
Well,
Yeah.
my two cents for like solo queuing as tanks is it's really hard to tell if you're actually doing the right thing because
Yeah.
you could be doing the right thing, but your team is not
Yeah.
doing the right thing.
And then
So
you-
you
That's
could
true.
fail.
You heard that, Maibo?
Come on.
Oh,
Lamau.
okay. Let's not try to shit talk here. This is a
Lamau.
Alright, are we good? Do we have anything else?
Not for my side. I think we're good.
Let's see.
Cool. So again, individual questions, DM me, and we can either set up like a time to talk, or I can answer things based on the information I have in the conversations I've had with coaches.
Sounds
or
good.
You can approach them, but I think I should be able to do
Yeah,
most of
yeah.
that.
Just approach goalie, and if he'll just ask us.
I do have one thing,
Eh.
but I can wait.
Oh, no, let's hear it. Let's hear it. We're all
I
here,
was gonna
so.
say that since I'm kind of playing again, because like I wasn't playing for about 2 seasons, but I moved to manager as opposed to captain. I wanted to, I guess, is there a clarification we need to make between what I should be doing, what Gully should be doing as manager versus captain? Like,
Was a manager, you set up scrims,
Position.
you make friends with everybody, you talk with teams that we scrim afterwards, things of that nature right now.
okay.
Your responsibilities will get more intense, obviously, as the life and breadth of the team grows. God damn it, dude. I had something important to say and I forgot. Fuck me, man.
Was it that you love us all?
I do love all of you.
Kick
That
ass.
is true. Yeah, you do all need to kick ass every day. That's true as well. I don't know, I forgot. Anyways. Oh, I was saying that if our first 2 things. Okay, we don't have a shot caller yet, so figure the fuck out. Okay,
So we have
figure the
everybody-
We
fuck
had
out.
somebody.
alright?
We had somebody audition, right?
So do we
That's
want
fine.
to?
Okay. Well, I don't need to be here, but let me say my second thing as well. Throughout this next season, we need to take VOD reviews a little bit more seriously because our positioning is getting, or is, shit.
No point.
So
As is Diamond Play.
yes, as is usual gameplay, but
We'll get
okay.
better.
All right. Anything else?
Other than the shot caller, I don't.
Who wants to be the shot caller? How many?
We have 3 people who put their name in.
Oh.
It's Topaz, Peach, and Pants are the 3 people who put their names into the ring.
Topaz, who, and Peach?
Peach and Pants.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All of you are never here every day. Except for Pants, of course. But, wonderful. Peach, come here. Come here. How you doing, dude? How's your day been, man? How's everything been going, dude?
College.
Hey, dude, don't tell anybody. But, like, secretly, you're my favorite, okay?
Alright, do you 2 need a
Alright,
room?
dude. Alright, dude. Keep that to
Peach
yourself.
is like
alright,
Wolf's
dude?
official hype man. It's to the point
Yeah,
where I'm pretty
dude.
sure Wolf PayPal'd Peach money.
Yeah, dude. Peach is great, dude. He just gets me going, man.
Directs though. Like you can't tell me.
Yeah, dude.
You can't tell me you didn't see those.
Yeah, dude. See, look at him, dude. Like, god damn. Oh, he's great. All right, let's clap it up for Peach. Woo! Okay.
Good job, Peach.
Sadly, he's not here every day, so cry. But you know,
So
whatever.
it's decision by
college.
default.
Yeah, it's like a dosage of medicine. You can't have too
So
much.
here's the thing. We'll play 3 scrims, one with each as shot caller. Most likely we'll go to pants. And like if you know that like we need to solidify the roster and then pick again. But all 3 of you will have at least 1 scrim, and if like you still want to pursue it, then we'll talk about it. Okay? Is that fair for everybody? Okay, awesome.
Although, I do have one question. In a somber comp, doesn't the somber usually take turn to the shot caller at that point, or would it still be our dedicated shot caller?
They don't shot call, they target call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, everyone knows what shot calling is, right?
I would like a
Okay.
clarification, actually.
Engagements, disengagements, alt usage,
When the
dry
fight's over.
fights, winnable fights, things of that nature, and
Comps.
strategies and comps. So, like, we're going left, that is a shot caller thing. Or we're going right, or this comp works here, or we're using this ults to win. It's a dry fight. Hey, disengage, engage, all die on the point. Things of that nature is a shot caller. Is a shot caller position. A target call is everyone. We just really suck at it.
Yeah. Can you argue like sometimes like even if someone's supposed to be shot calling, that other people can shot call if they've got a perspective of the fight?
Yeah, I said everybody's a shot caller.
No, you
Yeah,
say
so
everyone's
everybody's a
a
target caller.
Oh, so a target caller. Yeah, everyone's a target caller. Sorry,
yeah.
Everyone's not a shot caller.
everyone is not a shot caller. Hell no.
Yeah.
That's what we've been doing.
Yeah, there's only
Specifically, I'm calling me and my out for this, but I think what we also need to work on is when we pick a shot caller is just blind trusting them. Like if they're gonna make bad calls, they're gonna
Wow.
Bad
make
calls
ones that we
too.
don't. They're gonna make.
I think I remember someone saying that. I think
I know.
at least 20 times throughout the season. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm in
Oh no,
my
I totally
head.
just ripped you off. I just totally ripped you
Wow,
off.
yeah, dude. What the fuck,
Wow,
man?
you sound so smart.
Just taking
It's
my
almost like a
advice
coach
and
said
like
it.
using it as your own, dude.
Yeah, like for example, if we're in a fight and the shot class is not winnable, but then we get like 3 picks, can someone else call it a winnable fight?
I would hope that the shot caller would then realize that it is winnable.
Yeah.
Well,
Then it-
assuming that they just died and they're dead.
Okay, well
Think
that's like people on the
but
point have the
What I
best
was
view of
talking
the
about
fight,
is
so
completely
they can,
different than what you just
they
brought
can
up.
kind of override sometimes, but if the shot caller is
You-
calling it,
yeah.
you still want to listen.
The
Are we down for
only
stacking, by the way.
Really, the only time that you're gonna override is maybe a 2CP fight and he died already.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was referring
Okay,
to.
but there's not a lot of examples of where that needs to take place, though. Okay.
All right, I'll volunteer as backup.
Nice.
Does
Well,
backup
I
shot
think-
caller?
I mean, I usually don't die right away, so
He's
You
the
mean to
backup-
override?
he's
Yeah.
Okay, that's
He's
fair.
the
Bap up?
Bap up. Shot
bap
caller.
out.
That's fine. Well, I'm heading out.
Appreciate it.
But if we have anything else to discuss, let me know. All right.
Don't die in a snowstorm.
No, it's not a snowstorm. It's a windstorm.
Wait, one more question before you go. One more question.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Are you still off caffeine?
I am.
How's it going? It's like day 6.
It's going pretty.
Dude, I'm doing the
It's
same
it's,
thing.
it's okay right now.
Yeah.
Only thing is like my mouth when I wake up feels tasteless as fuck, dude. Like
Weird.
I'm not getting like any taste at all. Like no
I
sugar.
think you had a stroke.
I'm having like potassium smoothies, right? And they're like super thick, like so it gives you a little taste. But like, dude, I need some caffeine in my life, dude.
No, you don't. You can.
You're good. You're good.
I know. I have none in the house. All right, so
Good.
it's-
That's
Is
the
it
first
sad that
step.
I don't have caffeine often, but I still do ridiculous.
Oh, I had ridiculous amounts, like fucking baby elephant type fucking amounts, dude.
Yeah, in the last week I've had 2 days of like non-stop, just like no sleep. And the past
Yeah, I haven't slept actually. Well, I slept a little bit, but I haven't slept.
Yeah, we can tell.
How?
Now-
How can
voice?
you tell, dude?
You're yawning.
Oh. Now I want to yawn a lot.
Also, I just assume.
You just assume, dude.
Yeah.
Just assume that I'm not sleeping. Alright. You guys have a good
Have a
day,
good one,
alright? Yeah, you too.
See ya.
Later. Yeah, I love you, Peach, dude. Alright, I love you.
Alright.
Are we gonna do some ladder climbing for the last days of the?
Yeah, we can do that. Let me throw a load of laundry. Then I'm good. Also,
Fine.
if you have all your angry questions, I assume they'll be in my DM soon, so I will get to those as I can.
Slide
the
into
one
those
question I did have
DMs.
was
Yeah, dude.
about the
Slide
new
in.
people. You
What?
said something about new people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
This is
about 'em?
one-
So are we
are they
looking
coming
at
on Monday?
trying them out tomorrow, or are we?
Yeah.
What are we
Yeah,
working
so the plan, I think, is going to be give them 3 scrims, and it will be this week probably. So
Yeah.
the typical Monday, Tuesday, Thursday this week will be with them. And then we'll have a hard cutoff at the end of this week where I'll sit down with the coaches. We can decide if they bring enough value to warrant even considering pulling them into the roster, or if the amount of time we've already invested with like Pants and Topaz and BAP in their current positions is more value. So we'll have that
So I-
discussion and then we'll
so I
relay
guess
that to the team.
Peach will be our shot caller for tomorrow. Because
We're gonna. They've mentioned specifically that they want to shot call.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna give them a chance during their scrim, and then we'll have 2 more weeks of off season where we'll do the
Wait,
rotation.
so I
shot
get
call.
a day off.
Sure thing. Let's engage them with relevant
Yes,
discussion.
yes.
What we can
Bap,
do
can
is
take a
actually-
left time.
But we're gonna try some other shuffles too. I mentioned one of the things we're gonna try is you on main healer tomorrow.
Oh.
Hey,
Alright,
wait.
alright.
So you will
Actually-
have you on a mercy tomorrow. We'll have Maibo off heal tomorrow, and then the
Since
tank
they're-
duel.
Hey, Gully. Since
Yeah.
they're all here, we could give it a not official, but we could also just give it like a practice round.
Yeah, we can do that right now. Like if people want to do it in the ladder and practice shot
I
calling,
can't
that's
jump
fine.
on right now.
I'm
but
going to sleep.
Unfortunately.
Because mine was a pussy.
We have probably 5
You're all
people.
lame.
Who all's here that's going to play? We have Dakino, Baptized,
Me.
Conrad, Peach. Topaz, are you going on?
You what?
Yeah. I can.
Do you want to? Do you want a ladder?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll have 6.
The-
We actually have 6 in each, 1 in each roll, so
Yeah.
we can do that. So let me throw a little laundry in. Do like
Let's go
5,
lose
10
some
minutes
SR
of
and then we
warm up,
practice
and
tomorrow.
then we can jump in.
Recording right now.
See ya.